Hey guys, it's Supersonic Q here with the first art video in a long time, but I felt as though it was about time to make this, and I kind of formulated exactly what I wanted to show and how I wanted to show it. So I did decide on an in-depth series episode, but just for the record, and I think I've said this before, that these episodes are kind of on their deathbed because I really don't have a whole lot, more models to show that I haven't really shown off before that, are from a long time ago or that are worth showing off, I should say. So this episode is kind of what it is for that reason, is because, when I was still going strong with like kind of the more recent sculptures and stuff that I would be showing in like, episodes like 10 or 11 or 12, that type of thing. Now that we've gone up this high, is when I'm kind of going all the way back and taking, the models that were right at the beginning of kind of when I started to sculpt my video game characters. So it kind of comes full circle, and now we get to the earliest models as the series kind of gradually um, declines in amount of episodes that I'm going to be putting out. That's not to say I want to cancel it and that I want it to go away, but I just don't have, the material anymore. But we'll guess we'll kind of just take that for what it's worth and see where it goes. Who knows? Maybe I'll find those first 20 clay models, this summer that I've been looking for several years. So I guess it could go either way. But for today, this episode is going to cover some of my more earlier Mario models, which I haven't really shown at all. I've shown a couple here and there in some of my video game playthrough model videos, but never have I kind of excessively shown them like this. And some of them I haven't actually shown off at all before. So I have 10 characters here. They're all different characters because I didn't want to show like, 3 different Mario sculpts from way back when. I was thinking about doing that, but I thought that, kind of to show one sculpt of a character from back then, which most of these characters only have one sculpt to date. But some characters like Mario and Yoshi, I would sculpt multiple ones of them back then, but for this I decided just to kind of show one because it's usually the best sculpt out of the ones that I would do back then, the multiple ones, and it was the starting point. So with that, let's begin with Mario. My first Mario ever. That's what this guy is, and he was sculpted a long time ago. I want to say like, see, I'm getting this kind of vibe that it says 2006, but it couldn't have been 2006. It had to be a lot earlier than that. I'm gonna say maybe 2004 or 2005. I don't know, somewhere around there. It had to be like definitely early 2000s. Um, but his sculpt is actually, I will say, for a first Mario, compared to some of my other first clay models, and just as a Mario in general, for how young I was back then and how kind of inept I was with the clay, this is actually a pretty good sculpt, and I feel like he's kind of got that classic, well, at least for me anyway, that like classic El Supersonic Q. Oh yeah, this is sculpted, or this was sculpted exactly at that time period, kind of feel to it. So, aside from the fact that some of the kind of, I don't know, the shapes are a bit not, disproportional. The nose is like a Squidward nose rather than like, a Mario nose, and the ears are kind of high up. The hat is really, really weird. But I do have the hair going all the way around. I didn't bother to, I guess, put the overalls in the back. Uh, and I mean, he stands up pretty nicely and stuff. His arms are a little small, or his hands rather, his arms too. And the buttons are kind of just smudged on there. But I mean, for a first Mario, this is actually pretty nice. And I'm going to kind of do a small promotion right here and promote that my Then and Now series, which I've completely neglected. I actually want to do an episode kind of based on the anatomy of this Mario clay figure compared to one I would sculpt nowadays, and kind of do like an on-camera sculpture by sculpture comparison as to how the shapes would be made on this one as opposed to one that I make nowadays. Just kind of for the sake of seeing how, how I changed the way I sculpted Mario. But that is the plumber himself. So, funny story. Well, that was all for Mario. Except I'm going to talk about a story relating to Mario, but I was going to show Luigi now. I would have shown off my first Luigi because I have my first Wario, Waluigi, and Mario all here. And I was going to show off my first Luigi if I had him. However, I still think to this day that he was thrown out because I remember he looked almost exactly like this, but a little more, I want to say, not so much rushed, because I feel like to a degree all my clay models were, kind of had that look to them back then. But he was a lot more kind of, I want to say disproportional. He was a little bit taller. I mean, it looked like Luigi, but it was a little more. And because I think I didn't make him as well, I remember he broke, I think his hat broke off and maybe something else. And for the longest time, he was like in this bag, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to glue him, but it was a long time ago, and I couldn't use super glue by myself. Um, so I was gonna have, either my parents glue him or something, but just for some reason it never happened, and I have no idea where the bag is. I have no idea where Luigi is. He may have gotten thrown out, but I really would like to think he didn't. So anyway, I don't have that Luigi, but I do have this one who was sculpted, um, a decent number of years after this Mario. However, seeing as I haven't sculpted a Luigi in a long time, this would be, kind of dated to back then and not so much nowadays. Because I mean, it looks good, but there's still a lot of things kind of not wrong with it, really. I mean, it's a pretty nice looking model, and I mean, compared to Mario and stuff, like the hat looks a lot better, the nose is better, um, and it's just better like proportioned, I would say. But I mean, in general though, like it's just not, it's still not completely on par. There's a certain aspect of rushing that I can tell because I don't know. Like I said, I'm just getting this vibe that it's like I put the eyes on a certain way, and I kind of liked how they looked, not because they looked accurate, but because I just liked how they look. And I mean, I do kind of like that. I mean, he kind of has like a stylized look on him that I don't think I could replicate today. But that's kind of Luigi, and yeah, he is, like I said, kind of the oddball out because I wish I had my first one. I could kind of critique it a little bit more, but that one is somewhat recent. And look at that, Luigi standing in Mario's shadow. Oh, Luigi. Alright, so those were the brothers, the Mario brothers, and now we're going to get into the Wario brothers with my first Wario. And actually, can't say that. I cannot say it's my only Wario. I sculpted another one. I don't even know when it was. It was during my make this clay model just to make one, even though it looks really bad era, and he's in a box. Actually, I know where it is, but he's in pieces. But I have like the face. So for the record, not the only Wario I sculpted, but I should say the only kind of finalized good Wario. So yeah. Other than that, I've only made the other one for a grand total of two, because Wario's not very popular, I guess, or at least back then I didn't think he was, and I don't really want to sculpt one now. Anyway, so he exhibits a lot of the same kind of sculpting strategies that I did with Mario, with a really tall hat and kind of the awkward face a little bit. And Wario is definitely not as fat as he should be, but that's how it goes because I didn't really have proportion down back then. I do kind of like how I added these, how I added the arms. No, but how I made the arms kind of on his hips. It just kind of adds a distinction between like Mario and Wario. I just kind of like that how it looks. A bit more on character and on personality. These were sculpted the Wario, and next I'm going to show Waluigi. These were sculpted around the time when Mario Kart Double Dash came out because that was the first time I knew about these guys, and I sculpted them because that was the first game I knew about them, and I ended up getting Mario Kart Double Dash. So this was around the time that game came out, maybe a year or two later. So that actually would be, wouldn't Mario Kart Double Dash come out? I want to say like 2004, so 5, 6. So yeah, I bet these were sculpted around 2006, which means this Luigi was a little bit later, but whatever. So that's Wario, and I know I did make him with a stand after the fact because I went through all my clay models. I'm like, oh well, these ones don't stand up, but I want them to. But I think I must have taken it off somewhere down the line, and now he doesn't stand up without a stand. I think this is the last one we're going to get in this part, unless I can squeeze in one more, but I don't know. Anyway, this is Waluigi, and I actually did show Wario and Waluigi both off in a video game play for model video, but yeah, I sculpted probably the same time, well, clearly the same time as Wario, but more specifically, I'm not exactly sure if it was the same day, because I feel like this Waluigi, for being a, quote, second, character sculpted on a specific day, he's actually looking pretty good, and I feel like he would have been a lot worse, but once again, same kind of really weird, awkward, like, circular hat that, rises way above where it should be. He is really skinny, though. I got that right. Wario needs more fat, but Waluigi's skinny as he should be. And his arms are kind of just, not awkwardly to the side, but I don't know. I feel like I tried to do Mario, but maybe I purposely did this a little different. It's because they're not exactly like, like Mario's are. They're kind of more inward. But, yeah. That's Waluigi, I guess. The face is again just kind of just on era. I mean, it's not great, but it's not really bad to for when this was sculpted. I'm kind of compared to some of my other models, like I said, the sculpts on certain Marios and the other Wario, like I was saying, were just really bad. So um, for Waluigi, it's really not that bad, and he's probably not going to stand either. We're just going to let all them fall because after the break I'll kind of set them up in the back, and I can probably squeeze in one more, and it's Yoshi. I did make quite a few Yoshis back when I made this one, but I decided to only show this one because it was the first one actually. But I went like Yoshi crazy. I made like a purple one and a yellow one, which I still have, and then I think I made a blue and a pink one, but they were kind of really small and like chibi almost, and they go with the scale of these guys. But essentially the other two were of the same sculpt, and they're kind of a little bit worse because I feel like when I sculpt something for the first time, I kind of really look at the character. Well, I mean, nowadays, but I mean, even back then, when I was to sculpt something for the first time, I hardly used artwork, but I believe I may have a little bit for Wario and Waluigi. But aside from the point, something like Yoshi, I would sculpt him a certain way, but I would take a little bit more care in trying to get his features right. But then once I sculpted that first initial one, I kind of had a feel as to how I would sculpt a certain character. And being as I sculpted more Yoshis, they kind of got sloppier in the sense that I didn't care as much for proportion and, detail because I had this kind of way of doing it based on how I made the first one. So this Yoshi's probably the best one, and he is kind of smudgy though all over, like his eyes bled and his shell kind of bled, but I feel like that's just kind of the white clay and how, I didn't have a whole lot of precision back when I made this, but I do kind of like it actually. I mean, for a first Yoshi, I just forgot the scales. I guess I don't think I ever put scales on this, and it looks like I did some repairs because the nose probably fell off, and that's a really shoddy repair job. And again, the eyes are kind of smudgy, but I think for a first Yoshi, it's really not that bad. Aside from maybe I could have done a better job kind of blending the clay. And I will say that this stand is pretty hideous. I know I did this after the fact because he didn't stand originally, and I'm like, well, I really want to make him stand, so I added this stand onto him probably a couple years later. I don't think it was any recently then, or any more recently than a couple years from when he was initially sculpted. And I just think it's really ugly because it's really big because I had to make it really big for him to stand. And I don't know if I made it this big because I was having trouble making him stand up. Because, I mean, his feet were kind of at a weird angle anyway. He must have fallen over in the oven, which is probably what he did when he was initially put in the oven. But, I don't know. It's just really big. And like I said, I don't know if I did that because I couldn't make him stand, just making a small stand. But, I don't know. It just looks a little awkward for my liking. But, what are you going to do? Alright, so I guess I'm going to call this part 1, even though I wasn't going to. I didn't think this was going to be that long of an episode, but yeah, cool. So part 1, we covered all these guys, and now part 2 we'll cover 5 more.